Springfield's Talk 1041. Good Thursday morning. Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Nick Reed, and it is Thursday. So we will have Christy Fulnecki joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. We'll have Author of the Week. Sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone also. And your text messages. You want to send them in? The Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447-KSGF. There's some... sounds boring to say analysis coming out, but it is more validation regarding the results in terms of quality of life for people when you have less government as an obstacle to your daily life as an individual citizen or as a business owner. And this is a 19th edition of what's called the Rich State, Poor State analysis. And this is put out by the American Legislative Exchange Council, and what it finds is that essentially the 10 worst states, as you can imagine, in terms of not just the burden on the average person because of government, whether it's for their own personal lives or as business owners, result in a lower quality of life. And as usual, we see people flee those states. We're talking about the usual suspects, the New Yorks, the Californias, and then on the flip side, the states that have oftentimes zero income tax and lower tax burdens overall, along with lower regulations and just essentially anything and everything that, once again, is an obstacle to the average person to be successful. When you have less of that, people do better. And you would think that this is absolute common sense. However, when you look at the Gavin Newsoms of the world and the Joe Bidens of the world, the Democrats of the world, you would think that this were something up for debate. Ma'am Donnie announced the plans for the government-run grocery store. This is something that he's touted as if this has never been tried before. And it's going to not make money, of course, but it's government, so it costs like $30 million, and he's promised to do 5 of these. And we know what the outcome's going to be because, again, we've seen this sort of thing before in Cuba, in the Soviet Union. You end up with empty shelves and people waiting in line hours at a time, hoping to get a loaf of bread. During the announcement of, sort of the official unveiling of, I think it was the storefront, he touted it as New York once again embarking on this great experiment, this new approach. This is not an experiment that hasn't been done before. This is not some undiscovered or unexplored territory. This approach has been tried over and over and over again. In fact, vast numbers of people who have come to the United States fled their home countries because of this approach. The messages, why do you think Florida has such a huge Cuban population? I know many of you know this, but apparently people on the left don't get it. Why do you think it is that people from Cuba, countless individuals, have lost their lives trying to traverse 90 miles of ocean in sometimes homemade rafts or boats to get to the United States, to get away from Cuba? The hundreds of thousands of people that are in the United States that fled Venezuela under the socialist regime of Maduro. This has been done before. It's being done currently. Yet the left, and this includes the media and the Democrat Party, obviously, expect us to pretend as if this is something that's never been tried before. They just suddenly came up with this idea. Oh, you just can't believe no one's ever tried this. Mamdani, some rich, privileged, spoiled 30-something-year-old who's a mama's boy, we're expected to believe has come up with this idea, this brilliant idea, that no one ever in the history of mankind has ever come up with before, and a way to make it work somehow. This is what we're supposed to believe. This is what Democrats expect us to believe with all of their programs. And like people who risk their lives fleeing socialist governments, be it from Cuba, or the people who would again risk their lives trying to get over that wall in Berlin to go from the side of communism and socialism to the side of liberty and free market. Never went the other way. You never saw people. I mean, what a tremendous illustration. Never did you see people risking their life to go from the Western Germany to the Eastern Germany. From the free society Germany over to the great socialist utopia of equality for everyone, free health care for everyone. No one has to worry about rich people gobbling up all of the resources because everyone will be treated equally. No one fled that way. Just like you have net losses out of states like New York, out of states like California, and they all go to the states that were told by the Democrat Party are these horrible states in which the quality of life is just awful and it's deplorable. You got it run by a bunch of Nazis. Amazing how people from their states flee them to get to these hellholes, as they describe it. It really isn't nearly as complicated as we make it. Now, I do believe that there's a great interest in trying to figure out, okay, why does this way work? Why does this way not work? And sometimes just be sort of an interesting thing to determine. But you don't have to know anything about politics. You don't have to know anything about economic theory. You don't have to sit in one single classroom on one university campus for even 1 hour to recognize from where people flee and to where it is that they go. And that gives you the answer as to which is preferred, which is the better quality of life, because generally that's where people go. We've got weather coming up here in a moment. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447-KSGF. Oh, by the way, of course, what launched this discussion here is this ranking of the rich state, poor state analysis, and I'll tell you where Missouri is on it. Probably won't come as a tremendous surprise to most of you, but the site itself actually is pretty interesting because you can go and pick states and compare them to one another. So, for example, you can put Missouri and then pick Tennessee or Utah or Texas and see where the rankings fall and where property taxes are, and so it's actually pretty user-friendly for a site that deals with such degree of numbers in different states and so forth. Got the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see scattered showers and thunderstorms mainly before 2 p.m., otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 77. Tonight partly cloudy with a low around 63. For your Friday, a 60% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the afternoon, and then partly sunny with a high near 82. And taking a look at Saturday, a 30% chance of showers before 1 p.m., and then mostly sunny with a high near 59.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. If you've got any home buying needs, any home selling needs, she's your gal. House Theory Realty. There are a lot of these instincts people have if they are looking to sell a home, and perhaps you fall into this category and you think, well, first off, I know we've got to paint things because it's drab, and we've been meaning forever to change the cabinets in the kitchen because they are so outdated, and definitely have to replace the carpet in the rec room. And so you have already about a $5,000 list of things that you think need to be done as no-brainer things to even get it on the market. And you don't want to call Emily to come look at your home until you get those things fixed up because you don't want her to think that you think your house is good enough. Don't do anything. Don't spend a single penny until you have her pay you a visit, because there's some things that she knows from her absolute day-to-day, hour-to-hour life doing this that don't make a lick of difference that maybe did 10 years ago. Things that people expected to be upgraded, but now maybe they don't even want them upgraded because they want to do it themselves. And there may be things that you need to spend money on that you hadn't thought of. And so it is, there's no downside whatsoever, only upside to the very first step in even contemplating putting your house on the market is to get a hold of Emily Johnson, have her come do an evaluation of your home and start from there. And then let her, here's the thing, she's the expert, let her tell you what to do next. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. A handful of Democrat-dominated states rank at the bottom of economic prosperity and competitiveness as they continue to push progressive policies onto taxpayers. The American Legislative Exchange Council, known as ALEC, A-L-E-C, on Wednesday published the 19th edition of its Rich States, Poor States analysis, placing New York, New Jersey, California, Illinois at the bottom of the list. Surprise, surprise. The list ranks states based on 15 policy variables, including gross domestic product, domestic migration, and payroll employment. Quote, we rank the states with 15 equal factors, including taxes and spending and tort reform, or tort systems, rather, across the state, said Jonathan Williams, the president and chief economist of ALEC. These 15 factors are something all 50 state legislatures can control or change at any time. So the breakdown in analysis is apples to apples. These are categories that every state has and categories that every state has authority to make changes to. So they're in control. 9 out of the 10 states have Democratic trifectas, meaning that both chambers of the legislature and the governor's office are all controlled by the Democrat Party. These are the bottom 10 that they're talking about here. The only state in the bottom 10 that does not have a trifecta is deep blue state of Bernie Sanders, Vermont, whose has Democrat legislature, but the Republican governor is a left-wing anti-Trumper. New York ranked dead last in the analysis for the 13th year in a row, according to the analysis. The 2026 study noted that the state held the second highest marginal personal and the highest corporate income tax rate at 14.78% and 18.28%, respectively, which of course means that the 18.28% corporate income tax rate gets paid for by the customer of those corporations. So it is an additional tax burden on the average citizen of New York. Elsewhere, the state of New York saw virtually no improvement in property tax or sales tax burdens. One aspect of the study also notes is that New York ranked at the bottom in absolute demographic or domestic migration, losing over 1.5 million residents between 2015 and 2024. That exodus prompted Democrat New York Governor Kathy Hochul to beg residents who fled to lower tax states like Florida to come back since the, quote, tax base has been eroded. Those are the same people that just a year or two before she publicly announced that they could leave. We don't want you here, she said. California, another Democratic trifecta state, ranked 47th on the list, also holding the third worst personal income tax rate and the most progressive income tax policy. While the state ranked 25th in economic performance in 2025, around 1.4 million people left over the last decade. Quote, if there's anything that ties these 10 worst states together, it is the philosophy of tax, spend, regulate, and give to special interest in the name of cronyism. That's the approach of states that have bad policies. Again, this is straight up. Again and again and again. There's the very simple introductory recognition of reality here. And I know I've mentioned this time and time again, but it's so important. And this is a way for those of you who take the time to be more informed about all of this, to talk with and communicate with people who who have formed their political philosophy around Reels, around TikTok, around Stephen Colbert. They don't actually know anything. And for a lot of you right now, you're thinking about your own children or grandchildren that come home from their first semester at whatever university it is, and suddenly they are experts on the economy. They're experts on government, and the form of socialism is just the best clear way to go. It just hasn't been done correctly. That sort of thing, and they will oftentimes regurgitate some sort of stat that they can't even explain, but their professor has told them these things, and they're professors, so they must be right. But what I think is a great way to get people like that, whether it is some college student or, a coworker or your neighbor, is the undeniable fact that the states run by Democrats are the states people flee. And the states run by Republicans, and in fact, you don't even have to put political party in there. The states with bigger government, with greater spending, with higher taxes, and more progressive tax policy, in other words, the rich pay a lot more, really jack up the taxes on the rich, those states have a quality of life that results in the average citizen fleeing that state. And the states that have lower taxes, that spend less, and have less progressive tax policy, in other words, don't focus on really sticking it to the rich, are the places that average people go to when they choose to go. And when that is presented to someone that simply believes taxing the rich is the way to fix all the problems and that bigger government is the answer, things are just better that way, if they have the ability or the desire to really get to the truth and they recognize those results, that is a great introduction for them to go, oh, well, I never really thought of it that way. And from there, you can encourage them to study this. Look into why this is. Because that's the area where the left really falters, is they don't explain why that is, because they can't explain it. They'll try to lie about it. In fact, there's a story that is the Daily Caller. Mayor Mamdani says the exodus from New York City is just your imagination. It's just... which contradicts, of course, Kathy Hochul and her pleading for taxpayers to come back to the state. But you just deny it. We've seen this with Gavin Newsom, and he'll claim that none of this is true, or he may not focus or deny on the exodus from his state, but he'll claim, and as he did recently in a posting, that the tax burden in California is actually less than it is in Florida, which of course is completely absurd. Completely absurd. The left can never factually explain why it is that when their policies are implemented, people run away as fast as they can, and they go to the states of the political opposition, which is why they have to ignore it, pretend it's not true, deny it, or straight up lie about it. Pyramid Roofing Company, text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. All of your home loan needs, your refinancing needs, your um, reverse mortgage needs, if that's something you're not really familiar with or you remember hearing about them. And I know when they first came out, I thought, is this a legit thing? And then learned it was. And in my mind, it was for, somebody who's 70 years old and their house has been paid off forever. And it's a way you sort of try to play the clock like, well, I'll do a reverse mortgage and it'll pay for rent somewhere for me. And hopefully I die before that runs out. Otherwise, I'll be kicked out. And that is a vast misunderstanding of how that program works. In fact, you don't even have to have your home paid off in order to qualify, and you don't have to worry about being kicked out. Once that quote balance is served. But that's information that the characters and the team can provide you. And if you've never been through the home loan process before, I cannot tell you with any greater certainty how sorry you will be if you don't go that route. And I'm not saying that every other experience is just the worst in the world, but folks who have gone through, even with relative ease, the process with others, and then they utilize the characters in their team, just, generally speaking, on the whole, it is a much, much better experience. And so if you've never done it before, you wouldn't really know that. So I'm doing you a favor and letting you know, just go that route. And if you've already begun the process elsewhere, it's always good to get a second opinion. I want a great homeloan.com because you do.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see scattered showers and thunderstorms mainly before 2 p.m., otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 77. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 63. For your Friday, a 60% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the afternoon, and then partly sunny with a high near 82. And taking a look at Saturday, a 30% chance of showers before 1 p.m., and then mostly sunny with a high near 59.
We've been talking about the American Legislative Exchange Council, known as ALEC, and their 19th edition of Rich State, Poor State analysis, and it looks at 15 different variables, which are variables that apply to every single state, and they're variables that every single state, their legislature and executive branch have authority over. So you're talking about regulations, you're talking about taxes. In other words, things that are in place because the elected officials in those states chose for them to be. So there's no, well, we can't help it because of this, we can't help it because of that. And it is found, as usual, the results of big government, and the top 10 worst states in terms of quality of life for the average person due to these policies it's the Democrat trifecta, and that means Democrats run the state legislature and the executive branch. The only exception is Vermont, in which the governor is a, quote, Republican, but he's a left-wing anti-Trumper, so he's beyond Republican in name only. And on the flip side, of course, you have Republicans that are presiding over states, which it's not a coincidence, have lower tax burdens, less, quote, progressive tax burdens, less restrictions. New York, Illinois, California, these are states that are the worst, and it's no coincidence these are the states people leave. Now, in contrast, 8 out of the 10 top performing and economically prosperous states were Republican trifectas, which meant that Republicans were in charge of absolutely everything. By the way, Missouri was not one of them. We have a different style of Republican Party in Missouri as opposed to these more prosperous, successful states. And Florida, Tennessee, which, among other things, have no income tax and the least progressive income tax policies. Now, by least progressive, again, that doesn't mean we think of progressive being higher taxes. This is talking about the tax rate, instead of being less flat, as people become more successful, having more punitive tax rates on them. And so that's what it means by more progressive. In other words, it's we got to stick it to the rich. Turns out that doesn't work. Florida, for example, had the best economic performance in 2025, while the state's gross domestic product grew 98% over the last decade. Elsewhere in Utah, which had the best economic outlook, considered number 1 during the rankings, found that its GDP had grown over 110% in the same time frame and only had a marginally progressive income tax. Williams, CEO of the organization, noted the states with no personal income taxes spend around 50 to 60% less per person than in states with larger tax rates and larger tax burdens. A lot of this it's somewhat timely because of the debate regarding the elimination or the attempt to eliminate our income tax in Missouri. One of the real stark comparisons that's been noted even by a number of Democrats, that even though Florida and New York have roughly the same amount of people, the tax and spending per person, I mean, the tax rate is tremendously higher in New York versus Florida, and the amount that they spend, quote, helping people in New York is roughly double what is spent in Florida. Now, if you buy into the Democrats' approach that the more government spends on programs on, quote, helping people, the better those people are. That should mean that the quality of life in New York is twice as good as it is for people in Florida. I think most people recognize that ain't the case. Again, hence people fleeing New York for Florida, a state that has hurricanes, a state that inevitably, if you move to it, you're pretty much assured that if you live at least on the eastern time zone portion of Florida, but even the Panhandle, odds are at some point you are going to have to pack up and flee inland hundreds of miles because of a hurricane. This is the place people prefer to go because Democrats have so drastically reduced the quality of life through their big government, big spending programs. It's just a remarkable reflection of how truly ignorant our population segments of it can be. And what I find to be devastating is that the areas of our country that would be university campuses that are supposed to be about educating people and teaching people how to recognize things and then making intellectual decisions and understandings of those things, yet that is where something that is so clearly obvious, so clearly demonstrates what works and doesn't work, yet you will find the highest percentage outside of Hollywood probably, and, a Democratic National Convention, the university campuses, you will find the highest percentage of people that don't get it, can't figure it out. Where does Missouri fall in here? Missouri ranks 19th. So, roughly in the middle. Mediocre Missouri. Milquetoast, Missouri. Republican supermajority, veto proof. Not that, there's ever a need to be veto proof, really, in terms of party affiliation. And this is why I believe a lot of voters are extremely frustrated in Missouri that are Republicans, is that we don't look like a Florida. We don't look like a Tennessee. We don't look like a Texas. We're just right there, mediocre Missouri, right in the middle. 19th out of 50. I mean, at least we're sort of leaning towards, we're like the better half of the middle. That's our bragging point. Well, yeah, we're mediocre, but if you look within the mediocrity, we're on the better part of it. When it comes to the analysis for, this is 2025, top marginal personal income tax rate, which again is something that some in the Republican Party are working to eliminate so that we will look more like a Texas or a Florida or a Tennessee or a Utah or one of the other, 18 states that do better than we do. We're ranked 30th. So we're on the bad end of things when it comes to income taxes. We're in blue state land. Top marginal corporate income tax rate, 4.58%, ranks us 14th, so we're a bit better there. Personal income tax progressivity, we're 38th. So that, again, I mean, it's not overly confusing, but what would rank you first is if everyone, well, one, if there is no state income tax, because then everyone pays the same, but let's say you had a 5% income tax rate, and it was applied to everyone, that would rank you at number one. And the more progressive, in other words, sticking it to rich people, is what moves you closer to the bottom of 50th. We're at 38th. Property tax burden, 18th. On average, $24.21 per $1,000 of personal income. On the property tax burden. Sales tax burden, we're at 25th right now, so we're in the middle. And then it looks at state liability system cost and a number of different things that don't necessarily translate to the average person in terms of their overall burden and impact, but they do have an impact overall. You know where we are in right to work? 50th. 50th as in not good. Not number one, we're 50th. State minimum wage, we're ranked 34th at 15. And you can do side-by-side comparisons. If you go to the website richstatepoorstates.org, you can see all of this information, and it's really a relatively user-friendly website. I went to it. A lot of times there'll be a story about these rankings, and you go to the source, and the site it's very non-intuitive. It's just not user-friendly. And you just kind of scroll through, and it's not broken down in manageable ways for the average person to consume. I found this site to be pretty user-friendly. I mean, within just a couple of minutes, I was able to navigate through and determine what I was doing. And so you can see the overall rankings, but there is, if you're looking at the portion of the site where you can pick a state, and then you pick Missouri, then there is, I believe it's on that page, a state comparison tool, and you can pick another state, so you can do comparisons. So, for example, I pulled up Florida, which is actually ranked 10th overall out of the top 50, which, it's in the top 10. And so you'll see Missouri, top marginal personal income tax rate of 5.7%, putting us 19th. They're at 0%, obviously. Top marginal corporate tax rate, we're at 4.58. They're at 5.5, so they're a little higher. Personal income tax progressivity, it's 0 because they have none. Their property tax burden, this is one of the things that a lot of people worry about, is the massive tax shift. The property tax burden between Missouri and Florida is relatively small. Per 1,000 of personal income in Missouri, again, it's $24.21. In Florida, it's $26.23. So it's roughly $2 more per 1,000. The sales tax burden is a bit higher. This is the area, of course, that in Missouri, there's a great deal of discussion about the income tax being shifted to a sales tax, and the sales tax burden for Missourians per 1,000 of personal income is $24.69, where in Florida it's $29.41. Now, proponents of shifting to that form of taxation would note that while the sales tax burden is a bit higher, it's also shared amongst people who don't even live here, people that come here, use our roads, are staying somewhere, call 911, they use our police service, or, any other taxpayer-funded portion of our infrastructure. And, sales tax, if obviously anything that people buy that are from out of state, in-state here, would be contributing, and so that tax burden is spread outside of the residents of the state. But I think those numbers are probably not as spread out as I think a lot of people probably assume. In a state like Florida, with the income tax not existing, but instead sales tax that they probably pay twice as much, when in fact it's not even $2 more per $1,000. So, not a very a big difference there at all. Utah is another interesting comparison because overall economic outlook data, they rank first, and they actually do have an income tax rate there of 4.5%. It's much lower. It is, I don't know, much lower. It's lower than Missouri's. The corporate tax rate is lower. The personal income tax progressivity is much lower. The property tax burden is lower, of course. The sales tax burden is a little bit higher there. And, of course, there's a number of other aspects involved. So if you want to go to the site itself and look through it, do comparison state to state, I tell you what, if you're thinking about moving at some point, not necessarily because I can't stand Missouri any longer, but you are changing career paths or your job that you currently have is looking to give you a promotion, and that involves moving to one of 3 or 4 different states out there. You're trying to determine which one is going to be the best one for you and your family. It's a great little tool to utilize so you can really compare and contrast Missouri versus a number of those other states. That site, again, is richstatespoorstates.org. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. I am all squared away now. Over the weekend, I had to use their 24/7 emergency service line for my water heater. Austin, he made it out to my home probably in under 2 hours after I made that call. And after 18 years, it's very sad. My water heater decided it was done for. I know. Womp womp. So anyways, got my new water heater on Tuesday. I'm never taking hot water for granted ever again. But I did want to tell you about their water heater services because that is one of the many side services that the Foreman team offers. They also do LP gas line repairs and installs, mini split installs, and of course their traditional HVAC maintenance and installs. If it is time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
If there's any wonder as to why it is that finally the rare instance of a Democrat being held accountable for their behavior is coming to fruition, that being Swalwell, and someone had made the comment recently, they couldn't believe how quickly this progressed. The answer lies in the following story. New York Post, Tom Steyer and Steve Hilton pull ahead in California governor race. This is exactly why. Jungle primary, California. Not party primary, meaning anyone who wants to run runs in the primary regardless of party. And if no one gets 50 plus 1% of the vote, the top 2 vote getters are on the ballot in the general election. Usually that means it's 2 Democrats, which means in a general election, people of California have no choice but to vote for a Democrat. To the horror of Democrats, as far back as last year, the top 2 polling candidates were Republicans. And it wasn't because of any sort of awakening by the left in California, the realities of their policies sinking in, but instead it was the fact that there were so many Democrats running, it was splitting the vote. And so it was clear that they had to get rid of one of those top vote getters within the Democrats so that one of the others would start to get enough support to at least get on the ballot. They don't have to get 2 Democrats on the ballot in the general election. They only have to get 1 because then that Democrat will win. And so already we've seen that shift occurred. Mission accomplished. Democrats doing what Democrats do best, and that is rig elections. That isn't to say that Swalwell isn't guilty of these accusations, or some of the accusations at least. It's to say none of this would be occurring. None of these women who are Democrats would have come forward. if polling were different. And if Swalwell was clearly, or even if it wasn't Swalwell, as long as it was some Democrat was polling in a manner that indicated that a Democrat would be on the ballot in November for the general election. This is why it happened. This is why it happened so quickly. If you are a victim of sexual violence at the hands of a Democrat, you'd better hope that you, as a victim, can be used by the Democrats in order to acquire power. If not, you will be silenced, as they were until they could be used. By the way, just to give you a sense of who the Steyer, the Democrat that now is he's gotten the lion's share so far, largely because of the teachers' unions that were backing Swalwell have thrown their support behind Steyer. So he now is up there in the top two. He has proposed allowing the Attorney General of California, giving the Attorney General of California the power to arrest and imprison ICE agents and, quote, treat them like the mob. Bring back those that have been, quote, kidnapped and detained by ICE back what he calls home, not their actual homes like El Salvador or any of these other countries in which they've been accused and sometimes convicted of rape and murder. No, bring them back here. This is how insanely nutty this guy is. And he could very well be. Probably it's going to be him or the other nut job, Katie Porter, as governor of California. Springfield's Talk 1041. Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. We're streaming live, KSGF.com, Hunter, Hardscapes, and Outdoor. Just having a conversation yesterday in fact, we had our awesome lunch bunch yesterday. Shout out to any of those folks if they're listening. And we were just talking about doing patio work and so forth. And they're like, well, you had that Hunter Hardscapes patio done, didn't you? And I hear that increasingly from people, one, because it means that you're listening, which I like to know that. People are actually paying attention to the things I say, but also that listeners, because I know, and I've worked for a lot of other radio stations. Advertising's advertising, hey, we do our thing and then we take a break for advertisers. But with our local advertisers in particular, we really work to get particular categories that we feel will be a good fit for a certain segment of the population and our audience. So when it comes to really high quality landscaping and hardscaping, we didn't have anyone that, if you were a listener and you're like, man, I need somebody for a new outdoor kitchen or something, you wouldn't be able to know of anyone because of us. And so we like to fill those categories, and that's what Hunter Hardscapes does. And so it really does make me happy whenever people start recognizing that and out on the streets, mention it, because it shows that it's working, and us kind of connecting you up with partners that we think will be a great fit for you is something that's successful. And Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor is one of those. You hot over there?
Yes,
so you're really fanning yourself off.
I know, that's
like
right.
like a southern belle with the vapors over there.
Kidding me?
I got
seriously, it's like 110 degrees in here.
All of them barbecue baked beans just are really giving me the vapors today.
Over here with my umbrella. No. That's not me. I'm just trying to survive here.
I know, it is hot in here.
Yeah.
I think it feels great.
I mean, this is
add in the hot flashes. It's not a good combination.
We could have an entire 3-hour best of, which are just clips of us talking about the temperatures.
It's true.
Like 1 hour will be universally, we all agree. 1 hour will be a dissent, with some of us saying it's too hot, some saying that it's not hot enough, and then when it comes to it has been too cold a couple of times.
It would be funny to go back like the 10 years I've been on here and do the best of some of the dumbest things we've talked about. That would be funny.
That would be pretty funny.
Yeah.
There'd be a lot.
Yeah,
I do wish, I don't think we have archived that far back, but it would be interesting to or even if I knew when you were on for the first time. That's the thing. You think, if you just don't know, right? Like the first time you were on, I had no idea that you would be on this long.
Yeah. It was a year after I was on city council. So it's been.
Well, I know you had been on there, and I knew of you because I had talked about you on air. And then I know we've mentioned this before too, but Chef Baldy, who used to have a pizza food truck in the area until the business environment of Springfield was so smothering, he moved, and he's in the Kansas City area now. But I went to pick up a pizza from him, and he's like, Christy Fulnecki, she's getting ready to come pick up a pizza. And I was like, oh, and I think I mentioned, I've never met her. And he's like, well, stay here, you can meet her. And that's how we met.
Yeah. We like to go visit the businesses before they leave Springfield. Thank you for coming. We really wish you would stay, but we understand that you can't operate in our city anymore.
For some businesses, it's great. For other communities, because it's like someone whose first relationship is really not that great, and then they meet someone normal and they realize how good it can be. That's what a lot of times businesses that leave Springfield go through. They're like, I never knew how wonderful it was to be treated. I know.
It's like they were an abused spouse.
Like, I never knew I deserved to be treated so well. I had a conversation with this is true story, with someone that has numerous businesses, and they span through a number of different area towns and cities. And he had to go get some updated government licensing things in one of the surrounding communities here. Mm-hmm. And he was accustomed to dealing with Springfield. And when he went to get the same paperwork and everything needed and submitted done in this other little area town, he thought for sure. I think he even called him back to make sure. No, I don't need to do anything else. They're like, no, because he said literally what took 15 minutes would take 2 months in Springfield. He said
Oh, I
he
believe it.
could.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, he thought he was worried that it was going to come back to bite him because they'd be like, no, you didn't do this or that. And so he double checked. He could not believe how easy it was to actually, as a business owner, operate in a community other than Springfield.
Wow. Was it out of state or
No, no,
was
no.
it in
No.
state? Oh, really?
It was an area town.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I do have a number of lawsuits against many of the cities that it's very hard to do business with, but
It's
as
just
we've spoken about. And it's interesting what you were saying last hour about this whole thing, these stats of Missouri.
yeah,
Yeah.
mediocre Missouri. That's
How
what.
is it that we have Republicans that are,
Well, when you control everything, you get kind of lazy, I think, and that combined with the
well,
fact, and Lincoln Huff's a perfect example of this. You are in a red state, in a red area of the state, and so you know, well, I have to run as Republican.
yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And so even
These
though
people must not be Republican.
a lot of them
that's-
aren't,
Yeah.
and so, but then they work their way, because here's what happens, and this is the insanity of it. Because they're actually big government tax and spend, typical sort of Democrat, but they run as Republican, they get into leadership positions because they are seen as, well, look, they can bring everyone together. Well, and that's because they're actually oftentimes they're really trying to pull the party closer to the Democrat Party, but Republicans see that as that they're able to bridge the gap here. Well, they're bridging it because they're pulling you over there.
Yeah, right. And
You're just
Republicans are not used to fighting for what they want.
No, they
I don't know where this started with our party.
It's really sad because the party of true conviction is the Democrat Party.
Yes.
I mean, they're when it comes to their
I know.
causes,
Understand
there's
that.
such a greater adherence to their convictions than in the Republican Party, which is a sad thing.
Yeah.
It's very sad. So anyway, now that we really wrapped that, ripping on the Republicans in Missouri, let's get the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see scattered showers and thunderstorms mainly before 2 p.m., otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 77. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 63. For your Friday, a 60% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the afternoon, and then partly sunny with a high near 82. And taking a look at Saturday, a 30% chance of showers before 1 p.m., and then mostly sunny with a high near 59.
Christy Folnicki is with us here this morning.
Photographic memory I have here.
Swalwell.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
Swally Wally.
Don't ever
Boy,
say
they
that
have
again.
some.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds inappropriate.
Oh, yeah.
It's not, but I think just because it's him, it does.
What
Well-
a bunch of dirtbags in Congress
I know.
for everybody to keep that quiet.
Well,
I mean,
of
at first
course.
it's just like,
Nancy Pelosi's
Okay.
like, oh no, we had no idea.
no.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
just a stupid girl. I have
like-
no clue.
In the cycle of news, it went from sexual harassment to, I mean,
We have violent, forcible rape.
drugging me, and then raping me.
Yeah, while choking me till I black out.
Like, that's the fastest news cycle, which obviously it was a total setup by the Democrats.
Oh yeah, is to get him out of
Yeah.
the race.
I mean, that was crazy. What? I can't believe, what a stupid hypocrite.
But you know,
Too. I've been
Oh, I
listening
know.
to everything this week, which you forget. And you're thinking, really? I can't believe you just must. I mean, I wonder what you're thinking when you say that. You know,
Well,
Or maybe it's like a projection or something, or I don't know if that's a right term.
here's what I've learned.
Psycho. I don't know.
Yeah. It's hard and perhaps even impossible for generally good people to figure out someone like that. You know what I mean? Because we, like you said, you try to figure out what are they thinking, and I don't think we can understand that because
That's like
because you have some people that are we all make mistakes. We're all imperfect humans, but there is the human that generally tries to be a good person, that when they do wrong, they recognize it, they feel guilty about it, it'll eat away at them. But just they try in their daily life.
He's a
they're not-
psychopath.
but then somebody like that, where what is good and right and wrong, that's not a part of the equation in their lives. And so we can't really, it's a different language they speak. And so for us to try and figure out what is somebody like that? How can they say this? How can I don't think we can understand it.
It's like Hunter Biden being in charge of the war on drugs. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, what are you going to talk about? Like, he's out there talking about the treatment of women. Like, what?
Well,
This is the craziest.
Or the fact that even after the FBI briefed Nancy Pelosi on the fact that he had been compromised by a Chinese spy, she left him on
I know.
an intelligence committee having some. I mean, it's just.
And you forget about that. I mean,
You're right.
We remember, but I
Bang,
mean,
bang.
you kind of forget, and then all of a sudden he's running for governor. You're like, yeah, wasn't he a spy or something? Jeez. But you know what? I would like to give kudos to the women in the Republican Party because if it wasn't for some of these women, I mean, I think this was a setup by the Democrats, but
and the
Nancy
accusers of
Mace
Democrats.
and all these people, they are not, and
Oh, yeah.
Anna Paulina, these women are going after this sexual harassment
Yep.
fund and all this stuff to
yep.
make it public. So
Yeah,
good for you, women.
You don't see the Ocasio-Cortezes or the Illinois
right.
out there fighting.
Yeah,
for,
the squad's not out there
No.
trying to release the names of the
no.
fund, the sexual harassment fund in Congress.
Yeah.
So good
No.
for, at least that's a good
Oh, yeah.
thing for our party.
Well,
these
and-
conservative
and-
women.
And they go after Republicans as well.
That's what you were
and
saying.
they have been, and they've been relatively successful recently with one Republican finally resigning because of an inappropriate relationship with his intern. Now, there were no accusations of rape or anything, or it was this one. Or she wasn't an intern, she was a staffer. And honestly, the only reason that really got any sort of headlines is because she lit herself on fire to kill herself, which is, I mean, just like crazy.
I mean, it's not funny, but
Well,
it's just
no,
like,
I know.
I can't believe, like,
Yeah.
some of the stuff.
But to your point, it's particularly some of those Republican women. It's not just the Republican women that have
But they're
been
very
working
vocal.
to get them expelled,
Yeah.
and you just don't see that on the Democrat side. Not the side that protects women, of course.
Yeah.
Well, look at
But you
Jeremy
know-
Dean. I know I've talked about this
Oh,
before,
yeah.
but the state rep that replaced Crystal. I mean, that guy clearly has real anti-woman psychological problems. This is a sitting member in Jeff City that can't come within 50 feet, has essentially a restraining order against a female colleague because of his violent text messages that he sent to her, then mocking her for it,
Yeah.
and she is a victim of violent domestic abuse. He knew that when he targeted her, and he forced to go through sexual harassment training. And they have a primary. They'll reelect him.
I know.
That is, in their minds, that is the best Democrat in that district in Springfield that they can come up with.
I know, it's
no
pathetic.
calls for him to step down. They're like, well, we kicked him off a committee and have a restraining order against. But this is the best. This is what you want young people to see as the Democrat Party. This is acceptable behavior to you.
Yeah, the criminals.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I don't care whether it's a state rep right here that covers Springfield as a Democrat, or an Eric Swalwell, or everything in between. They all cover for each other in the Democrat Party.
Swalwell, I mean, to me, I think the craziest thing, besides what he was thinking about being the leader of, the Me Too movement, is how
He thought it meant something else.
I know. That's right.
He misunderstood. Yeah. Yeah.
Me too. I want to.
Yeah.
I want to rape all these women.
Yeah. Or that was me too. They're like, shh, no. That's not how that's supposed to be used.
The craziest thing to me is, how do you silence all of these women and get them not to say anything?
I'm telling you though, this is my point.
Is like crazy.
It is because the entire culture of the Democrat Party is this. That's how because it's hard to it's like, if you're, I'm trying to think of an example, but I don't know that one is needed. The environment against women is so hostile within the Democrat Party. They just know to keep their mouths shut. They know it. To have so many different women that weren't connected to each other be alleged victims of this guy, and they all knew to keep their mouths shut.
I know.
What does that tell you about the party?
Well, and she said that she was afraid of him.
Well, of course.
So,
Look what happened to Tara Reid.
Yeah, right.
Who accused Joe Biden of pretty much the same thing, with other than full-blown rape, but it was a violent sexual assault, and she was just to where she fled the country because of the way she was treated by Democrats whenever she came forward.
Well, and then
So
we have Bill.
They
then we
send
have
a message.
Bill Clinton. I mean, you could go down the list
Monica
of the Democrats.
Lewinsky got away easy.
Oh yeah,
She really did. She was just called trash by the Democrats.
I know. We just talked about this.
Called a
weeks ago,
crazy
too.
lunatic. She was just sort of mocked and diminished, but there never was really any evidence that she was threatened in a way that she feared for her safety,
Which
like
I
women
can't even
do
believe.
now.
I
Yeah.
mean,
it was a kinder, gentler Democrat Party back then. They just ridiculed and mocked.
Well, yeah,
their
we knew
victims.
she was too high profile to kill her. Cassandra Levy, when she went missing, all this was going on like around the time I was in DC, and I just remember like, this person's dying, this person's being crucified, and the media was like, "Man, I don't want to get on anybody's bad side here."
How glad
watch yourself.
How glad was Gary Condit when 9/11 happened?
Oh, yeah, I know, that's right.
I mean, really?
Oh, yeah, right.
He's like, this is awful, but
Well, you get this like really creepy feeling too when you work there, because you always hear about all the bodies floating in the Potomac and stuff, and you're like, man, it would just be so easy to kill somebody. But maybe it's just because of Monica Lewinsky was too high profile, maybe, or something.
Yeah.
Maybe she had good bodyguards, but
I do at the same time. And maybe I'm wrong. As much of a liar as Bill Clinton was and is, I never felt like he was that evil, dangerous evil like Hillary Clinton is. You know what I
like
mean?
his wife.
I just feel like he's sort of a depraved person who really loved women. The fact that it's not exact.
I mean, this is kind
it's
of
not
past tense thing too.
Yeah.
It's not a past tense.
It's not. Yeah, it's not like he was married to wife of the year. Where he's like, boy, I want to fool around, but I'd really hate to lose what I got. And
It's just probably terrified of her.
There's that. Well, he's a man now down in Arkansas who has long claimed he was the illegitimate child of Clinton. His mom was a hooker.
Oh yeah,
That guy,
right. Yeah,
and the pictures of him, you're like,
yeah.
that kind of does
yeah.
look like a young Bill Clinton. But I don't even remember.
get back
I
and
don't
start talking about old politics. We get on the
Mm.
Clintons. Everything centers around the
So Bill
Clintons.
Clinton anyway.
See, you go the Clintons.
Yeah.
This, you go the Clintons. Sexual harassment,
But I
other
tell you,
crimes in America, you go back to the Clintons.
it's almost like Clinton derangement syndrome, except for there are actually bodies and victims. And well, I tell you the other part of the Swalwell thing that I'm still, because it seems as if, oh, everything that could be revealed has been revealed, other than maybe there's some more victims, but they're just probably going to have the same charge. But his best friend, Democrat U.S. Senator Gallego from Arizona, he's the one who beat Kerry Lake, and
Yeah,
he
okay.
was chair of his presidential campaign. And some are saying that that's him in that video in that hotel room with the hooker.
Really?
Yeah. Now, he said it's not, but you watch the interviews with him, and it's being mocked as like a classic example of what would be used perhaps by interrogators or the medical community to show how the body reacts when you're lying. Because he's like, and his we're supposed to believe that they were best friends.
He didn't know anything,
had no
right? Yeah.
no clue whatsoever. Even after the Fang thing happened, still didn't understand that he didn't know that Eric Swalwell would ever do something like this. And I saw the latest report that it turns out that they both spent a lot of time together at resorts in like Puerto Rico or something. And this guy, I'm thinking there is no way this guy is going to come out unscathed. Now, there may not be direct accusations of rape against him as well, or even, he may have just been the wingman. But there's no way he is going to be able to walk away, I don't believe. Well, there's always a chance. As people believing, well, I bet he didn't know. Come on.
That woman said, too, that she was afraid because of Swalwell's, I think it's his family is in law enforcement or something.
Oh,
He made a mention of that.
Yeah.
Like him being an attorney and then his family. I thought, man, you don't even know what's going to happen next. That was like, whoa, sexual harassment. I'm going to jail. I mean, he's probably going to be in jail by the weekend.
Yeah, Democrats want to get rid of him as quickly as possible. So, hey, could get Epstein. I mean, let's not be unrealistic about this. More with Christy Fulnecki coming up. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by JNS Automotive. Today we'll see scattered showers and thunderstorms mainly before 2 p.m. and then mostly sunny with a high near 77. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 63. For your Friday, a 60% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the afternoon and then partly sunny with a high near 82. And for Saturday, a 30% chance of showers before 1 p.m. and then mostly sunny with a high near 59.
Before we move on, a couple of your text messages coming in on the Pyramid Roofing Company text line. We were talking about Monica Lewinsky and how the Democrat Party was a little softer and gentler towards their survivors of sexual assault and harassment, and all they did was trash her and just mock her, call her, Hillary Clinton called her crazy, and the blue dress, say Monica Lewinsky, is direct evidence of the connection of the Clintons, and because we were talking about how she escaped any sort of potential, right. She wasn't Vince Fostered. And for those who don't know Vince Foster, it was another person within the Clinton world that was a problem for the Clintons who committed suicide. And Hillary Clinton's first move was to then take his computer out of his office because, of course, that's what you do. And of course, that was, she was allowed to do it. Potentially. Ironically, it could have been Linda Tripp that saved Monica Lewinsky's life by convincing her to save.
That's a good point.
To save that dress. Also, remember when James Carville said, "quote drag a dollar through a trailer park and all the whores will jump up." It was, I don't know if that's a direct quote, but I do remember what he had said about these victims of Bill Clinton, that if you drag like a $5 bill or a $1 bill through a trailer park,
he's such trash.
Oh, I know, but he's still. But this is what's crazy about the Democrat Party. He is still on these Democrat-run networks as a point person for the Democrat Party after saying those things about victims of sexual assault.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And it makes me mad, too, and my daughter mad, because she's getting ready to graduate from LSU, and he always wears this LSU stuff. I'm like, you are making that school look terrible. Just take it off. He's such a grumpy old man. Why do we even have him on?
I don't know. Because he's a Democrat.
And Melania Trump actually mentioned him. So, in her speech that she gave, which I thought that was pretty awesome last week, about stop defaming me.
Yeah, I watched that.
She named him. I thought that.
Well, they
just need to sue him and shut him up. And
but again, it's just another woman that here they are attempting to trash. And
Mary Madeline, are they still married?
I think so.
Remember they were like the big power couple, Mary Madeline and James Carville.
Yeah, Mary Madeline was the campaign director, or at least very instrumental in the Bush campaign, while Carville was running the Clinton campaign when they were running against one another. So they met.
Yeah, so she was Republican. Yeah. That was crazy.
Yeah,
I think I had their book signed by both of them.
Yeah, I don't know what she does now. I mean, I wouldn't show my face if I were her and he was out there saying some of this
crazy.
Still crazy.
Yeah.
Did they really? Mm-hmm. Wow, well, you don't see her. She's probably like, well, he's senile and he has dementia, so I'm not gonna get on there and debate him. Which is funny because they still show him, on Fox and stuff. But you would think, she was a political consultant forever, that she would be on there too. I have not seen her in years on TV.
But she was she was an establishment Republican, so she may have no use for Trump. She may dislike him, so that she's like, I don't want to be out there on that side.
Yeah.
You just don't know. Or maybe she's just out of it. She doesn't want to do it any longer. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I hope they sue James Carville. How funny would that be? Oh, yeah, you keep running your mouth and let's see what happens, okay?
So Trump posted the picture of him as a doctor.
I mean, I was like, what? Did he just...
See, I know I've made this point, but this is a great illustration in the difference between Democrats and Republicans, where Democrats, they would get in fact, people have been circulating. Remember these posters and photos, and it was Obama in 1,000 different depictions of being holy and Jesus and a
Oh
spiritual
yeah,
leader on the covers of magazines.
and the
And so
halos.
the halos
Yeah.
and everything, well, that was perfectly acceptable, because Obama was Jesus. But
I know. I was like,
I
he made a lot of Democrats come to Jesus.
but
Trump
whenever
did.
but whenever if a Democrat does something that is not appropriate, they will just defend them till the end. But when Trump does something that is out of line, his supporters are like, no, don't like that.
I know. I was like, I am not a fan of you posting that. I'm glad he took it down because I
Yeah.
know all the Christians were like, okay, no. I mean, if you don't know that's Jesus, then you need to get in your Bible a little bit more if you think that's a doctor.
Well, I wonder what sort of what his doctor's like. I mean,
Well, the image like flashed in my head of all those pastors always come to his office and pray over him
Yeah,
and stuff, and I thought, what are you gonna say next time? Okay, Mr. President, we just gotta tell you this. I mean, we know you're saying you don't know if you're gonna go to heaven, but
Yeah.
you really need to not put pictures that portray you as Jesus. Like, don't post
Yeah.
those.
hey,
And
yeah, Mr. President, we decided we're going to make you some flashcards. They're just 10 flashcards, basic things not to do or say as a
Oh, yeah.
Christian. We
I
know
know.
you're busy, probably don't have a lot of time to really do deep dives into this stuff, so we're going to make it as easy as possible. We have them in magnet form to go on the refrigerator in the White House. So when you go get your Diet Coke, you can do a refresher.
Franklin Graham, I wonder if he called him and he was like, Mr. President, I think you need to take that down.
Thought it was
What are you talking about? I'm the healer of the nation.
the thing that I do.
I'm the literal healer and the ultimate healer.
But I do believe he did it because he thought it would annoy liberals, because they hate it anytime he portrays himself as anything that is admired, or anyone that's admired. That they hate that. That's why he's kind of even played off the king thing a little bit.
Well,
And so I don't think it ever really occurred to him that Christians would get upset by that. He thought, oh, I'm really, really going to annoy him now. They compare me to Hitler. Well, guess what? I'm going to compare me to Jesus. See how you like them apples.
like, no, you need to take that down. You're making all the Christians mad now, Trump. But I love how all of a sudden everybody on CNN is an expert on Jesus now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, do you remember, like, during the Olympics when we had this whole thing when they were mocking wherever it was,
The Last Supper.
they're mocking the Last Supper, and they're mocking Jesus, and they're having like the
and the
lady from
media
Wicked and all this stuff.
And the media always downplays it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're reading too much into it, and oh, quit being so uptight. But all of a sudden, and I mean, they're massive fans of the Pope suddenly too. Democrats are Team Pope.
I mean, he made Democrats become religious really overnight.
Oh, it's amazing. Hey, so did you hear speech?
Even Jesus.
I'm going to take a quick break, and I don't know if you heard, as you talk about the left suddenly experts and huge fans of Jesus, the discussion they had on The View about Jesus being the Messiah. It's fantastic.
idiots.
You mentioned Franklin Graham. You did do a posting on Trump's.
To the break on social media, see if there's any news, and it's Franklin Graham, and he said he'd received a lot of questions about Trump's post, and he said, "I do not believe President Trump would knowingly depict himself as Jesus Christ. That would certainly be inappropriate."
Isn't that the soft way of letting like an 8-year-old who's done something wrong that they shouldn't be doing? Like, now I don't believe you would actually do that because you know that you would get in big trouble if you did, right? Yeah. What did you think? You were a doctor? Maybe.
It's a doctor, wasn't it? Can you say it was a doctor? Oh, yeah.
The doctor of heaven? No.
I would bet money that Franklin Graham called his office. That's so funny that just came up.
Trump's like, why do I keep getting this is amazing. I have a lot of text messages from religious leaders suddenly. So you had mentioned suddenly the left experts on Christianity and Jesus, and this is the brain trust of theologians discussing the issue on The View.
Himself did not run around saying, "I'm the Messiah. I'm the Messiah." You're supposed to have a little bit.
Well, here's exactly what Jesus said. I am the. You know what? Jesus the prophet started Jesus. He's not God. She just said, "I knew Jesus."
Jesus was not narcissistic like this guy.
It's not narcissism. Just say it.
Yes, it is.
So there's a lot of crosstalk there, but Joy Behar started off by saying Jesus never said he was the Messiah. And they're like, well, kind of, yeah. And then she doubled down saying, no, he would never say that because he wasn't a narcissist, to which the response was, well, you're not a narcissist if you are the Messiah and you're letting people, and she's, yes, you are. If Jesus said that, then he's a narcissist.
Oh, these are just a bunch of idiots talking. I mean, really, I hope nobody is looking to them to be experts on the Bible or experts on anything else. I mean, I guess it's just good to laugh at them. But, the thing is I don't understand. Okay, I have talked that I was practicing Catholic for almost 50 years. So no offense, Sarah, but I just can't believe this thing with some of these cardinals and the Pope. Like, this is when you're going to stand up and say something. Not when how many, what is it, at 4 million, whatever it is now, abortions in the United States a year. Not when all these people in Africa are murdered, in Nigeria, Christians.
Well, and that's where the Pope is just such an interesting, unique position because it's like the one religious leader that has a degree of clout with the entire world, even non-religious people.
Yeah.
There's no other religious leader that really has that. And that's such an interesting, unique position. So when the Pope says something, it has an impact, even like throughout the world, even, again, to countries that aren't necessarily religious or Christian or have religions counter to it. And so to me, and I don't know what the Pope is or isn't supposed to say. I think on one hand, you do have the argument that, well, it's incumbent upon the Pope to utilize his influence in a way that is godly, and you can't really separate things that are going on in the world from God and your message, right? I mean, you can't have this complete. But on the other hand, you start talking about this stuff, and you open yourself up to these sorts of criticisms and conversation, and just like you point out, once you enter the foray, it's like, well, where were you on this and where were you on that, and people start believing that, well, if you are openly going to criticize this thing over here, but you're not this thing over here, well, why is that? Do you not think that this is important?
Right.
To your point
where you jump, start talking. Okay, so what is it? 1 million? I was trying to The number of abortions a year is at 1 million or
It's
something.
tons.
A lot. Okay. So to me, that was always bothered me that, if you want to be pro-life, then that's probably the most important thing that you could say as a pope, being pro-life and defending life, just even, regular life. So anytime Christians are being, murdered in a country, you need to say something, because that's, your basic tenet of your faith.
Well, and it's my understanding also, and I mean, I'm the one who is furthest, the closest I've come to Catholicism is I used to go to midnight mass with my aunt and uncle and cousin sometimes when I was a kid,
Well, that's kind of close.
So, but it's my understanding that there is a division between when the Pope is talking about things biblically, that there's sort of an infallibility there, but that is limited to that. Like when the Pope's talking about things that are worldly and giving thoughts, that's kind of different. Like, okay, this is a guy, yeah, he's Pope, but it's almost like when you would come on as a member of the council, but sometimes you would talk about things not as a council person, but as a person on the council, or Dr. M, when she would come on, she was like, now I'm not here as a school board member, but this is my perspective
Not
as
in
a
your
school board
official
member. Yeah.
capacity.
And so in my mind, that is somewhat a similar situation.
Well, I mean, you're always in that position when you're a pope.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you speak for the whole church.
But you think about it, even in churches, a lot of people, there's a divide there. Some people feel that their minister of any sort of Christian denomination should address a lot of these worldly issues, where there's some people like, nope, I don't want that at all. I don't want any politics in it. That's not what I want to hear.
I was about politics.
And so,
We
sure,
talked
yeah.
about politics.
And so, but the Pope, when he's speaking, it's like the entire world is the congregation to some degree, even if they're not necessarily adherent to the religion. And I mean, let's be honest, a lot of it boils down to this. People tend to support what the Pope is saying if they agree with it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, really?
Yeah,
And, I mean, it's just, it's
Yeah.
true. And I mean, it's that way with most things. We got Christy Fulnecki here, more coming up moments. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Nick, you let's see. Okay. Let's go. Let's start here. I didn't read the second one, but I'll get it as well. Nick, sometimes you make me so angry. I sent you a text yesterday explaining the background of that picture that Trump posted. He sincerely believed he was being depicted as a healer because that is what the original person who posted the picture meant by it. You don't realize what a hypocrite you're being by mocking Trump and acting like he was being scolded as a child. You accuse people of not doing any background work when they see something and then they misinterpret. Now here you're doing the same thing. Very disappointing. Well, first off, and I know you can't listen all the time. I actually read your text from yesterday during the show yesterday and fully acknowledged that, yeah, I could kind of see that. But listen, I'm just telling you my thoughts here, and maybe Christy summed it up well. If Trump really, like, it didn't even cross his mind, people might think that looks like a depiction of Jesus. Like, come on.
That's the first thing I thought of.
And listen, and I'm just, you're like, okay, what if it were me? If someone made something like that of me, and they meant something that had nothing to do with Jesus, I still would be like, but I think other people
like
may
Jesus,
think, you know.
It still looks like Jesus.
So
but the good thing about all of us, we can disagree, and we won't dig skeletons up of each other.
Well, and this is the other thing that I would like to think, and I do believe it generally does. It's a division between the people on the left and the right. Is the left is always all or nothing. And here's the thing. You can still fully, Trump, great president. I think he has our best interest at heart. He is 1,000 times better than what the alternatives have been, even within the Republican Party. He is, in my lifetime, the most transformative, and I would argue the best president in my lifetime. And I can still believe that, but then at times be like, hey, yeah, I think this is kind of a one-off. So I just don't like, and I'm not saying that the person who texted this feels this way, but I don't like it's okay for us all to recognize and be supportive of a guy, but sometimes some people being like, yeah, no, I disagree with you on this. I think Trump probably suspected or knew what that picture looked like regardless of the original poster. And I could be wrong.
We do not.
Yes.
We are all for not having groupthink. So it's good for everybody to have their opinion. It's okay if you disagree.
And maybe not start accusing people with whom you disagree of being a hypocrite and start getting personal like that. I mean, it doesn't bother me, but I don't want to see Trump world become like the left, where the moment there's any sort of disagreement.
The Democrats
I know, 100%. Yeah,
it's good that we're free thinkers, and then
I'm glad the person texted that in and expressed the thought because it gave us a chance to discuss it.
If you have a disagreement, just go off.
That's right.
I mean,
rip us, Christy Flecky. Thank you so much. Appreciate it as always. Have a fantastic rest of the day.
This morning's Iran war update. Secretary of War Hegseth says Iran has a choice. It can choose a prosperous future or the road to ruin. And he has a warning for Iran's leaders.
To the KH leadership and IRGC leadership, we're watching you. Our capabilities are not the same, our military and yours. Remember, this is not a fair fight. And we know what military assets you are moving and where you are moving them to.
Hegseth says President Trump is committed to maintaining the successful blockade of Iranian ports for as long as it takes. A Pakistani delegation meets in Tehran, hoping for more U.S.-Iran talks before the two-week ceasefire ends.
Pakistan's army chief is meeting with Iranian officials for talks in Tehran. It's the latest diplomatic move to ease tensions in the region and arrange a second round of negotiations between the United States and Iran.
Correspondent Ken Lorman. Parts of the central U.S. and Great Lakes region cleaning up after several days of severe weather.
Wisconsin's Department of Natural Resources has been watching levees around the city of Portage, where rainfall swelled waters to nearly 19 feet on Wednesday. This woman lives near the river.
We just don't need no more rain.
Record rainfall in the state flooded streets and trapped drivers. In Madison, 2 trees fell onto Jeremy DeFall's home.
I was like a little frightened, like a little bit frightened. And when I look outside, it was worse than I ever seen.
In Michigan, powerful storms overnight damaged 2 ice arenas and flooded streets. Some public school buildings sustained structural damage in Ann Arbor. All audio courtesy of WKOW. I'm Donna Warder.
And ahead of this morning's Wall Street opening bell, the Dow futures are up 126 points. NASDAQ futures 46 points higher. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Progressive knows that boat days can come with unexpected problems.
It's been a tough Saturday on the lake. I ordered swim trunks in this orange cream color, but it's actually more orange auburn. Oh, and it's swimwear. I probably can't even return these.
If a real problem comes along, your boat's protected 24/7 with Progressive, so you can keep worrying about boater problems. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, not available in D.C.
Veterans and active duty service members. When your call to service ends, your mission doesn't have to. Go from GI to IT in just a few months at My Computer Career. Prepare for a high-demand career in cybersecurity, protecting people, systems, and institutions from real cyber threats. Cyber warriors are needed now. Will you answer the call? Go to mycomputercareer.edu/CWP to learn more. That's mycomputercareer.edu/CWP, an elite CompTIA certification partner. VA education benefits are available to those who qualify.
Springfield's Talk 1041, Author of the Week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. I am Nick Reed. Welcome to hour number 3, Ozarks Elder Law. My own mother, I was talking with her yesterday about her recent visit, Ozarks Elder Law, and her deciding that it was a good time to see if all of her things were in order, and just talking with me about that experience and another consultation that she's going to have just to sort of wrap up a few other things before all of the work gets done by the Ozarks Elder Law folks. And it really, there is a comfort there. And she, after just talking with me about a number of the things that they're like, oh no, this is great. You're doing, what you've done here is fantastic. And then advice on, you may want to change this. Here's the benefit of doing it this way versus that way. Overall, she's like, I just feel better. And I felt better that she felt better. It's just all feel goods all around, because on one, it does impact the one day, although I know she never ever will actually die, but if for whatever weird reason she did, I know that it's going to be so much easier on those of us that are left behind because of the things that she's done with Ozarks Elder Law in order to make sure that's the case. But I also just feel better that she feels better, that she doesn't have to worry about, well, did I do this right? Did I do that right? Is this going to be a hassle for them? Am I going to leave behind some sort of burden? And that's just, aside from the actual benefits of making sure that everyone is taken care of, including yourself, in a manner that you want, just the overall comfort of knowing it is a huge benefit as well. And it's not the sort of thing that you can just download offline and do it yourself for $199. You need it done by experts. Ozarks Elder Law, 10 area locations, one of which is in Joplin. That's the one that my mom, who, living in that general area over there, Carthage, hit the Joplin location. And odds are, if you're listening over the air, there's a location that's close to you as well. You can find them all and get that appointment going at ozarkselderlaw.com. We were talking and we were joking earlier about the whole thing with Trump and the posting of the image, and Trump, saying that, hey, I wasn't thinking it was, showing me as Jesus. I was thinking that it was showing me as a doctor and a healer. And when we first talked about it yesterday or the day before, I was like, 5 to 10% chance in my mind that he wasn't thinking it was Jesus. And my thought was that, he thought or thought, some people may think that, and it was more to drive the left nuts, because they just hate any time anyone compares Trump to someone that is admirable, and who's more admirable than Jesus, the Son of God, the Savior, the Messiah. And thought, boy, if they want to compare me to the worst people on the planet, thinking it's going to get at me, let's see how they react to this. And some people, and we were talking about a text that came in, a person that was just really frustrated that I was even open to the idea that he might not have really genuinely had no clue that this was a picture that would be potentially perceived as being Jesus and so forth. And listen, I know how frustrating it is to hear disinformation, misinformation, and it was described as me spreading misinformation. And I just don't think misinformation is something that describes an opinion. I mean, that's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong, and I don't think having even a wrong opinion is spreading misinformation or disinformation. And I think sometimes when you have a healthy relationship with someone, you can laugh about things that sometimes maybe they do that are a little bit goofy or that you disagree with. And the interesting thing, I believe, about the relationship that Trump has with his voters or his supporters is there's like this relationship as if you really connect with him, and no other president has ever been able to do that. I just don't believe it. As much as they'd love to pretend as if Obama was the end-all be-all and he just really understood, and Bill Clinton, oh, I feel your pain. They can say that all they want. But, the sense that Trump supporters have that this guy really does get us. He really does care about us. And that sort of, if you even want to call it oddly enough, friendship that exists, to me, and everyone's different, I razz on my friends sometimes. If I've got a friend or family member that does something that's kind of a goof or a mistake, in my opinion, I give them a hard time about it, and we laugh about it. Everyone's different, though. My family, we just have sort of a sense of humor in that way. I've said before, we have not ever had a funeral for one of our close, immediate family members in which we weren't cracking up about something at some point. That's just the sense of humor we have. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it wrong. But I do understand when, as a Trump supporter, if you hear a show like this and I'm kind of laughing about, oh, Trump said he was a doctor. Come on. It isn't really meant to be mean-spirited at all. It was more like, hey, we're all in the family here, and okay, whatever, buddy, sort of thing. And may not make it any easier, but I just, don't want people to misunderstand my motives or my thoughts on the whole thing. So anyway, just thought I'd share that. We do have Author of the Week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone right now. The latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see scattered showers and thunderstorms mainly before 2 p.m., otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 77. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 63. For your Friday, a 60% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the afternoon, and then partly sunny with a high near 82. And taking a look at Saturday, we'll see a 30% chance of showers before 1 p.m., and then mostly sunny skies with a high near 59. And the Pyramid Roofing Company, we once again had severe weather last night. The National Weather Service is reporting there was a ton of hail and storm damage around Miller, Mount Vernon, and even up by Rolla. And we have more strong storms rolling in the area Friday evening. So I once again want to remind you, if you have storm damage to your roof, make sure to go with a trusted roofing company. And my go-to recommendation is always Josh and his crew over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. They offer emergency tarping services if you need it, free roof inspections, and discounts on new roof installs for our military and first responders. So if you have storm damage to your roof or you just want to check up on your roof, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
I'm Nick Reed, and Thursday means Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. And today we've got Drew Thomas Allen, a columnist for the Daily Signal, host of the Drew Allen Show podcast, and author of America's Last Stand for Christ and Country, The Martyrdom of Charlie Kirk, and his latest book, Clinton Hoax, Obama Coup, the declassified story of the Trump Russia delusion. And for a lot of people, they may think this seems dated, but it has been relatively recently that so much of the information that really validated what we suspected came out through declassification. And best I can tell, let me know if this is an accurate headline of it all. At some point, the Clinton campaign came up with this hoax. The Obama administration knew that there was nothing to it, but then Trump won, so they thought, let's lean into this. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, it's pretty fair. I mean, the only thing I would add is that, throughout the campaign, right, before he won election, it was what you could call a campaign dirty trick. And it was worse than that because Crossfire Hurricane, which was, of course, the FBI investigation into Trump-Russia collusion, they were spying on the campaign, that was happening throughout the campaign season. It started kind of late July. And, that was pretty horrific, but it was elevated to the level of a legitimate coup on December 9th. So Trump wins election. He overcomes the hoax. And instead of acknowledging, hey, we gave it our best shot, we being Obama, Clinton, the Democrats, the deep state, but he won. Okay, let's just let it go. They didn't let it go. They escalated. So it was Barack Obama who then elevated it to a coup by, on December 9th, ordering an intelligence community assessment that then would give the government stamp of approval to the hoax to make it seem legitimate. And obviously that led to the Mueller investigation. It hobbled Donald Trump's first term. And the intention, of course, was to undermine the will of the American people.
Now, it seems that before December 9th, there were maybe mixed messages going on, and you can correct me if my timeline's wrong on this, but I remember during the campaign, there was an event. I want to say Obama was hosting the president of some country at the White House, and he was asked about Trump sowing doubt in the election, and he really mocked the idea that any country could ever interfere in our election, noting that because of the way the different states have the different ways of handling their state's voters, that it just wasn't feasible that there could be any sort of actual interference in our elections. But it appears as if during that same period of time is when you had the Hillary Clinton campaign that was trying to stir some of this up, and even the FBI spying on the campaign. Is all of that happening during the same period of time?
Yeah, it's sort of happening during the entire time. I mean, Obama, would say a couple things to lend a little bit of credibility to it. But he really stayed for the most part in the shadows, working behind the scenes. And, what they knew was, Barack Obama and the White House, their actually unclassified email system had been hacked by the Russians back in 2014. And the New York Times reported on it a year later in 2015. So, the Russians were constantly engaged in this type of activity. As a matter of fact, the Russians had hacked into back in, 2008, when Obama was then just a candidate for president. They hacked into some of his aides' emails and things like that. So, the idea that the Russians were, interested in, trying to elect Trump and interfere in such a way was preposterous based on reality and history. And furthermore, in the book, there's a chapter called the Problem with the Premise, and that is the idea that in any world, Putin and the Russians would rather have, Trump as president instead of Hillary Clinton, which was the best thing that happened to the Russians for foreign policy in a very, very long time since the Cold War. It was Hillary Clinton and Obama who misled and actually withheld information about investigations into the Russian companies that were buying our uranium with the uranium deal. It was, of course, Barack Obama who famously before his reelection went over to Russia and told the Russians, hey, I just need a little bit of time here, and then I'll have some flexibility. I've just got to win the election first, He was the one who wanted to reset relations and, improve them with Russia, right? So it was completely insane. But the declassified documents, I mean, the gist of them, what's so important is that the FBI and CIA, the intelligence community, during the election season was intercepting Russian memos that were intended for Vladimir Putin. So the Russians were spying on us, certainly. And the irony of it all is that the most accurate portrayal of what the Democrats and Clinton campaign and DNC were up to comes from the Russians, actually. These memos weren't propaganda. They were legitimate, obviously intended for Putin's eyes. So they were doing the job that actually our journalists should have done. But they chronicled the fact that Hillary Clinton was planning this scheme to tie Donald Trump to Putin, that Barack Obama, was interested in making all this go away, that Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, was communicating with the Clintons through back channels to update her on the email scandal. I mean, and all this stuff was verifiable. You could corroborate it because it was happening in real time.
We're talking with our author of the week, Drew Thomas Allen, the book Clinton Hoax, Obama Coup, the declassified story of the Trump-Russia delusion. You mentioned the then Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, and there was what, if I recall, it was a local photographer that revealed Clinton getting on her plane on the tarmac. I think it was in Nashville. I could be wrong on the details; they're irrelevant. But we were told once that was revealed that I just went over there to talk about grandkids and so forth, which of course on its face is ridiculous. What was taking place, or what do we know was taking place during that visit?
Yeah, well, we know that the FBI and the Obama administration were trying to figure out a way to make her scandal go away. And at the same time that they were trying to make that go away, they were in the process of, elevating this Steele dossier, this raw, unverified intelligence, which obviously wasn't based on any truth, to basically pivot and to make Trump the bad guy as well, to try and, overshadow her own scandals and impropriety. And, the tarmac meeting took place in Phoenix, and we know from communications from the Russian memos that, Loretta Lynch had established a back channel to update Clinton's, that Barack Obama was personally interested also in making this go away, that they were trying to help Clinton out. They knew about her schemes. And so that tarmac meeting that took place in Phoenix, where Bill Clinton just kind of happens to be there at the same time, goes onto the government jet with Loretta Lynch, and they talk for 30 minutes. And we know because of all this information that came out that was declassified that obviously, a few days after this, that's when she went and met with the FBI. And then a couple days later, James Comey came out and said, she committed crimes, but because of Hillary Clinton, we're not gonna do anything. We don't recommend any kind of prosecutorial action. So we know that they weren't talking about grandkids and golf on that plane.
Hillary Clinton still to this day will blame James Comey for her loss because of the investigation, despite the fact that he, quote, cleared her prior, to I think it was actual election day. But why did that happen? Why, given what the true target and goal was, and that would be stopping Donald Trump from getting elected president, did he end up having that investigation of Hillary Clinton?
Well, it was the only option that he had. It was obviously to her benefit. The other alternative was that they prosecute her because she lied repeatedly, saying that, she didn't send any classified information on her illegal server. That turned out not to be true. And so what was Comey supposed to do? I mean, he had to come out and justify a way to make it go away. And there were no good options. I mean, when you've committed crimes, and everybody knows that you've committed murder, right. You can't come out and just say, oh, none of that happened. We all lied about it. I mean, you have to still, that was just, there were no good options for Hillary Clinton. That was the best thing that could have happened to her. There's something else interesting too, Nick. And I think, it's interesting because the plan to tie Donald Trump to Vladimir Putin and villainize him came long before the WikiLeaks emails even first came out, which is just an interesting timeline development. When the WikiLeaks stuff came out, and the big story there was that it was Julian Assange that leaked them. It wasn't Vladimir Putin. So actually, Julian Assange should have been the one that was the bad guy, but that didn't further the Russia narrative, right? And so if the WikiLeaks stuff hadn't come out, she wouldn't have had the ammunition she needed to, propel that Trump-Russia collusion hoax, into orbit. And so it's funny, like all these things. I mean, the WikiLeaks stuff was actually, people think, oh, it was the best thing that could have happened for Hillary Clinton, because without it, she couldn't have launched it.
Well, and I guess because we know a lot of the successful attempts at squashing certain investigations, I wondered why it was that he even allowed that investigation to take place in the first place, is really what my question was. With Comey on Hillary Clinton, if he just felt pressure like he had to, it was so obvious that they were attempting to assist her, or what was his motivation to actually even have an investigation?
Well, it was congressional pressure, and it was because of Benghazi. I mean, this stuff had been going on for a couple of years. And had you not had Benghazi, you wouldn't have had Trump-Russia collusion, because you wouldn't have had the revelations that she was using a private illegal server. So, this information was out there, so they couldn't not investigate. They had to investigate. Right. And the whole investigation was about trying to figure out a way, dragging their feet on how to get away from this. Because remember, at the same time that they were investigating her illegal private server, Peter Schweizer released a book called Clinton Cash. And then you had actually a secondary investigation that was starting into Hillary Clinton, and that was her pay-for-play while she was Secretary of State. The FBI was actually looking into that stuff. So they actually had two different scandals that they were trying to figure out how to get rid of, and this threatened, obviously, to dash her presidential ambitions. So, I mean, it was a very, very serious thing. I mean, all this stuff is being aired publicly. There have been hearings on this stuff. And so, you have to have some sort of investigation. What they had to figure out, though, is how they just kind of make it go away.
We're talking with our author, Drew Thomas Allen, the book Clinton Hoax, Obama Coup, the Declassified Story of the Trump-Russia Delusion. One of the, I guess, motivating factor of these folks in the so-called deep state oftentimes is attributed to political ideology. How much of it is that versus the idea that you have, be it the FBI or the CIA, they like someone being in the White House that they have lots of dirt on, because that gives them control, or at least a lot of leverage when they want budgets or new buildings, versus just an ideologically driven way of doing things.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't begin as an ideological thing. It's simply about power. So, what is the deep state? It's defined as basically the unelected bureaucrats who are like cockroaches and are in there embedded in multiple administrations over a long period of time. So they're the ones that ultimately wield power. And so generally speaking, whether a Republican or Democrat is elected president, that president is expected to come in there and become a cog in the wheel. They don't have a lot of latitude with what they're allowed to do, because they say, look, we're here permanently. You're here for 4, maybe 8 if you're lucky and get reelected, but you're going to leave and we're still going to be around. Do you understand? Capiche? And so they knew that Donald Trump was never going to do that. He wasn't going to be a cog in the wheel. He had vocalized it on the campaign trail. And plus, everybody knew Donald Trump, and he was independently wealthy. He was somebody that couldn't be easily controlled. That just wasn't his personality either. He was already a powerful person in the business world. And so, the presidency really was, it was a sacrificial act in some way. Not to say that he doesn't have an ego. Anybody that wants to be president has to have an ego. But that's the reality of why they came for him so hard and why it was bipartisan.
Well, the final question, Trump all along, accurately, he was constantly calling it a hoax, which I thought really underplays it in retrospect. But did Trump know that all of this was untrue simply because, well, he knew that he was not in any way, shape, or form involved, including with Russia? Or did he know what was going on? Did he know about the December 9th meeting and the cover-ups and all of the nefarious things that were going on behind the scenes in order to set him up for this coup?
No, he knew very, very little. They underestimated the links and the depravity of the deep state. He had no idea. He was totally blindsided. He was so set up, whether it was General Michael Flynn, who was entrapped by the FBI, James Comey, who obviously leaked a handwritten note to a friend to give to the press that ultimately launched the Mueller investigation. He had never experienced anything like it. And, no president has experienced that level of opposition before. And this was a guy who didn't come from politics, so he had no way of dealing with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Reagan, for example, had been governor of California. So when he came into the presidency, he had reliable people that he could put in positions. Donald Trump, part of the error of his first term, it's not all his fault. He didn't come from politics, so he didn't have that robust staff and people to trust. He had to trust, people that recommended individuals, and we know those individuals ended up being, weak.
To put it mildly. Our author of the week, Drew Thomas Allen, really appreciate your time this morning. The book again, Clinton Hoax, Obama Coup, the declassified story of the Trump-Russia delusion, author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. I'm Nick Reed.
This is your home for Town Hall SRN News.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see scattered showers and thunderstorms mainly before 2 p.m., otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 77. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 63. For your Friday, a 60% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the afternoon, and then partly sunny skies with a high near 82. And taking a look at Saturday, we'll see a 30% chance of showers before 1 p.m., and then mostly sunny skies with a high near 59.
I don't know this story, but I see the headline from the Daily Mail. Justin Bieber's Coachella performance slammed amid claims of sexism. And then there's these are just a couple of seemingly random stories, but they gave me a thought. And Sabrina Carpenter has apologized because she was at this concert, and I'll play the audio for. Well, I guess it was Coachella, and in the audience there was I don't know that you would call it cheering, but there's this loud expression that is apparently part
There's
of
an official name for it.
yeah, there's
Let
an
me look it
official.
up.
I actually printed off the story, but now I don't know what
You
I
don't
do
know
with
what you
this.
did with it. Way to go.
Yeah, I know. Well, because I was like, I'm not going to have time to talk about this. Oh, let's see. I still want to do that story today. Oh, here. Okay, here's the. So Sabrina Carpenter addresses her reaction to cultural call at Coachella. And the story, so it starts with, quote, "My apologies, I didn't see the person with my eyes and couldn't hear clearly," Sabrina wrote on a post on X, April 11th. "My reaction was pure confusion, sarcasm, and not ill-intended. Could have handled it better. Now I know what a
I'm going to let you try this.
Zagruda is. Zagruda, I welcome all cheers and yodels from here on out. The Zagruda, often used by women in the Middle East and North Africa, is commonly done during celebrations such as weddings and parties." So now, this has been a huge thing. Now, you may not have followed this. Don't feel bad if you haven't. But, this has made headlines, and immediately Sabrina Carpenter really found herself being attacked by, I would say culturally people on the left. And this is the instance of her on stage. She's starting to play a song, and then you hear this cultural call and her response to it.
Is that what you're doing? You don't like it. That's your culture, is yodeling? Is this Burning Man? What's going on? This is weird.
All right, so that was pretty much it, and it was la 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 la, and you could hear the exchange. Actually, the person was not upset. They're like, "Oh, it's our culture," and Sabrina Carpenter was doing what I actually think is endearing for an artist to do, or a comedian, and that is have a off the cuff, unplanned back and forth with someone in the audience based off of something that they do or they say. You see this every once in a while, and I think it's somewhat endearing because they're breaking out of character, if you will, and it shows that they're not just going through the motions, but they're actually interacting with the audience. And that's she just heard this. She's like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Is this like what is going on? Is this Coachella?" She was being lighthearted and funny about it. Well, she was immediately eviscerated by people on the left. And one of the claims against her that I thought was particularly hilarious was calling her racist because she did not know what that call was. Now, how can you be racist if you have no concept of what it is that you're even talking about? It would be one thing if she were making fun of it, knowing what it was, to claim that she was racist, even though she may not be, and it may be a very weak argument. But if you were to claim, oh, she's making fun of it because it is a cultural call associated with non-white people, but she didn't have a clue what it was. So, we've gotten to the point now when you're racist, even when you don't know race is involved whatsoever. And so, as usual, of course, she's got to apologize. And a lot of this, let's be honest, she's white. And so if she weren't white, this would not necessarily be a thing. But white people are the bad guys. This is all part of the DEI culture, in which if ever you don't know something, or you make a joke about something, or you question something and you're a white person, and the thing that you don't know about, that you're joking about or you're questioning, is coming from a person or a culture that is non-white, you are automatically bad. That's just the default of it. They can't generally explain to you why you're bad, why you're racist, why it's because you are white. And the irony of that entire DEI approach is that it is built-in racism. It's all dependent on this color person being a bad person, this color person being a good person by default because of their color. But anyway, so now she's done the standard thing that you do when you are a celebrity and you find yourself in this position. You grovel and use it as an opportunity to learn and so forth and so forth. It's just, it's become such standard cookie cutter rote reaction to stuff, to where, in all honesty, it's really become meaningless. But it's required penance from white people in our culture today. And so whether it's that, or the headline, Justin Bieber under fire because of accusations of sexism in his act, which, for Pete's sakes, this contradiction of people on the left who, on one hand, criticize anyone that might have a moral boundary line different from theirs, yet they act like the biggest prudes in the world on the flip side. They cry sexism all the time. They cry, well, that's not funny. You shouldn't joke about that. They become these puritanical psychopaths that run around demanding that everyone here adhere to their really almost M.C. Escher-esque moral boundaries. And there's this other headline during the break I saw, and Chappell Roan's in trouble again, and this time she's in trouble because she at one point severed herself from some association that she had because the person with the company had sent messages to Epstein that weren't, I don't believe, necessarily indicative of any sort of unsordid relationship, but just the fact that this was somebody that was associated with Epstein, and she took a public stand and, saying artists should not have to be in these financial arrangements with companies or people that are a violation of their moral beliefs. Well, she has some big deal, I think, with L'Oreal or some other company that has, ties to something that is considered to be really wrong and bad. And so some of the left, they're like, well, she's a hypocrite because, she severs ties over here for moral reasons, but why isn't she over here? Is it because of money? Is it because the contract's too big? Anyhow, so the point being, I'm wondering if at some point these celebrities, particularly musical artists, are going to get to the point where they either just hang it up and quit or they start ignoring this stuff, because they have created a culture of such these monsters that constantly just look for a reason to attack, it's nitpicking on one hand, but it's nitpicking on steroids, finding any little contradiction or anything that they can determine to be offensive to someone. Particularly, if you notice the three that I mentioned, they're all white. Justin Bieber, Chappell Roan, and Sabrina Carpenter that have, that are really being targeted for this stuff. And if if at some point they're just this leftist constant witch hunt is going to saturate that industry to the point where they're just like, we cannot keep up with this stuff anymore. We have accommodated it. We have supported it, when it was a little sporadic here and there, like anything, we can handle it in doses. But when it gets to the point that any sort of what is normally considered a standard performance or any sort of just lighthearted joke that you make while at a concert trying to interact with the audience, that you aren't even allowed to be human. You're not allowed to be artistic. You're not allowed to be what it is that you are, lest you be crucified before the masses by these left-wing activists that are part of the DEI generation. And I just think at some point, like we saw it with comedians to a large degree. A lot of comedians just quit going to college campuses. They're like, we're just not going to do it anymore. There's no point. Every time you go, there's some category, and it's almost obviously it's always on the left, individuals that just make it impossible to be a comedian. You can't tell jokes anymore. And so a lot of them just quit going to college campuses. It's a little bit different, but increasingly Jewish comedians have stopped booking events, part of their tour in New York City, because it has become so culturally accepted to be openly anti-Semitic that they're just not booking shows there anymore. Which it's interesting. All of these places are culturally Democrat-run places. And I just, as you see these headlines in which these people that are not only accommodating to the left and have been accommodating to the left, but oftentimes are thrown full in with the left, and they see their own people turn against them because of something that really was not in any way, shape, or form tied to racism, tied to misogyny. That bubble, I just can't help but believe at some point it's got to burst. And the result's either going to be these people are going to quit touring, they're going to quit having any sort of interaction with fans. They're going to stop utilizing social media and completely isolate themselves off so that Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Springfield Livestock Marketing Center. Mark your calendars for this upcoming Saturday. They've got a big sale coming up that you won't want to miss, especially if you have been in the market for cattle. They are expecting over 700 plus head, and they'll have everything from registered bulls, futurity heifers, you name it. They actually have a whole breakdown of what you can expect at this upcoming sale on their Facebook page. Just look up Springfield Livestock Marketing Center, and you should be able to pull it up. Now, this sale, it will start at 4 p.m. and they will have live streaming and online bidding available. Make sure, if you do want to use that online bidding, to pre-register before the sale so you're all squared away. To check out other upcoming sales, visit their website, springfieldlivestock.com. And of course, you can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
In the previous segment, it was using an example of some recent criticisms that a number of celebrities who are generally very accommodating, supportive, and even all in with left-wing causes, but the left has really been targeting and attacking them. Justin Bieber being one, Sabrina Carpenter being one, and Chappell Roan also being one of them. And off air, Sarah asked me, like, well, where's that article? And because I was kind of vague on the details of the criticism she's getting, because that particular story wasn't the point as much as the overall environment that the left has created for artists in this country. But I don't know that there's a lot of news coverage about this particular witch hunt, if you want to call it that, uproar. It's primarily been online, and so there's some attention being paid to it. But essentially, why it is that people on the left are really after her now is because she had at one point had a deal with it was an MAC partnership, and the first let's see, the company, that MAC, she had a relationship. It was a partnership, and it was one that would end up being separated because there was scrutiny of Casey Wasserman. I want to make sure. Okay, let me back this up. Chappell Roan facing a messy image problem, but the story is not as clean as a simple hypocrisy charge. The singer made a public break from Wasserman in February, saying she would not overlook actions that clashed with her moral values. Days later, attention swung back to her MAC partnership because that brand sits inside Estee Lauder corporate world. The overlap has fueled questions about where Roan draws her ethical lines. The Chappell Roan backlash is real, even if the facts are more layered than the loudest take suggests. The first half of the story is straightforward. Roan said on Instagram that she was no longer represented by Wasserman and wrote that no artist should be expected to overlook actions that conflict so deeply with their moral values. Forbes and ABC's AP Pickup both reported that her exit followed renewed scrutiny of Casey Wasserman after the Justice Department documents released surfaced old emails with Ghislaine Maxwell. Wasserman had not been accused of wrongdoing in connection with Epstein, and the reporting around Roan's departure has consistently made that point. The complication is her MAC deal. MAC officially named Roan its newest global brand ambassador on December 8th, and the partnership has continued into 2026 through brand promotions and campaign material that matters because critics are comparing a very public value statement she made regarding this, because ultimately what it boils down to is Ronald Lauder of Estee Lauder had stayed in contact with Epstein through 2017 and so forth. And so people are saying, okay, well, you dropped your representation over here because of connections to Epstein, but you have this lucrative deal with Estee Lauder with a similar type connection. Why aren't you dropping that one? So anyway, those are the brief details of why it is that the left is targeting Chappell Roan now. Sarah tells me that it's MAC. I was saying MAC. I guess the parent company of Estee Lauder.
You can do both.
Well, I didn't know either way, but it has dashes in between each letter, so that's why I thought it was. But
You'll be good either way.
I think I will be. California taxpayers footing the bill for homeless illegal aliens in shelters to get sex change procedures, including breast implants. I mean, it gets to the point where you can understand why people just throw up their hands and like, what difference